In this video I want to show how I've made my shell casing pens. They're pens made from a 3030 spent cartridge, and I'll be using a slimline or funline pen kit. I'm by no means the first person to do this. I've seen a number of other videos and I appreciate other people posting so I can learn. I post this really as a record of what I've done, and also if it helps someone else then that's good too. I'll start with the shell casing. So we need to drill a hole to insert that, which means drilling out the primer. For safety, make sure that it's dimpled. You can see the dimple in the end there and show that it's been fired. It would not be good to drill out the centre as we're doing now on a live firing cap. I find it best to start with a centre drill because there's less chance of that dimple pulling the drill off the centre drill. I'll then finish it up with the 7mm twist drill. The lathe I inherited from my grandfather. It's a Myford ML7. I was very fortunate that I was able to ship it over with me to Kentucky. We're fortunate that the slimline tube is exactly the same length as the cartridge. Next we need to solder the tube into the cartridge. It can be done with super glue, but I've had less good results with that. It doesn't tend to adhere too well. I used to be a plumber, so soldering brass is no problem. What I'm doing here is just putting a bit of PTFE tape round one end of the inner tube. That will hold it central within the cartridge. I found if I just tried to position it manually, it went over to one side slightly and didn't look so good. So the tape is just to hold it there. I've also seen people use a second 8mm tube to act as a fill-in, but I'm cheap. The tape works well. The secret here is to make sure all the surfaces are clean. You can see I've got some sanding paper there, and then apply flux. Seem to have a little difficulty getting the tube into the cartridge here, so a little bit of off-camera cheating seemed to help. When you're soldering, what you want to do is to heat up the metal and then let the metal melt the solder, rather than try and use the flame to melt the solder and hope it runs in. That just doesn't work, it just beads up on the surface. Here I'm drilling out the wooden pen blank. I think I've used red oak, and I'm using just a very simple homemade holder. Next operation is to glue the tube within the wood pen blank. I'm just scuffing up the surface of the brass tube just a little, gives the glue some purchase. I prefer to use Gorilla Glue. You can use super glue. Not to say that I won't in future, but currently I'm using Gorilla Glue. It expands as it sets, so it fills up any voids. It's water actuated, so here I'm just using a Q-tip to put some water down the centre of the blank and then apply the glue. Applying fairly liberally to one end. And then insert it into the blank. I'm twisting and pulling in and out to make sure the glue is evenly covered, and then just press it down slightly so it's below the end, and check that I haven't gone too far. And I'll let that set up usually overnight. I'm not quite sure the exact setting time, but I do these of an evening and then it's ready for the next day. And there's my cartridge and my wooden blank ready to go. Next, I'm setting up the cartridge and the pen blank on the lathe. There's no bushing between the cartridge and the pen blank. The end of the cartridge forms a guide, so no bushings required. My preferred weapon of choice is a roughing gouge. I've used various. I've used carbide, spindle gouges. It's really whatever you're comfortable with, whatever works. But I find for me the roughing gouge to take out most, or get most of the shape, and then finish off with the skew. Once the shape is complete, then I go through the sanding procedure, making sure I go through all the grits from say about 150 down to 400. I'll finish off by burnishing it with some of the shavings. Now I'm set up for applying the CA glue finish. I've put in some HDPE plastic bushings between the casing and the pen top. You use that kind of plastic because CA glue doesn't stick to it. When I apply the glue, I use one of those small Ziploc bags you get with the pen kits just over my finger to save the glue, and apply with a paper towel. I aim to apply about 20 coats. It's pretty quick. I may apply some accelerant after about 10 coats. If I'm patient, I'll just let it set and dry on its own. Once the CA has thoroughly set, I go through the buffing process using micromesh pads, use them wet, going through all the grades. There's about 10 pads. Finally finish with some cream polish and buff it with paper towel. The last step, some assembly are required. I have to make sure that the end of the casing and the tube is completely clear, make sure none of the solder has run down in there, because I found that the pen mechanism was very tight to get in, so took care there. This is a homemade pen press. It works for me. There's a number of styles you can use. You could just use a bench vise, but you press it together, just taking care at each stage. When you insert the pen mechanism, test it with the ink section of the pen, screw it down and twist it to make sure that it fully actuates. You can always push that mechanism a little bit further into the tube. You can pretty much never pull it out, so it's a little at a time, and just take care. So there you have it, one 3030 shell casing pen. I thoroughly enjoy making these and using the slimline kit. Not very expensive, fun to produce, fun result. And as I say, I'm not breaking new ground, I'm just following what others people have done. And again, thanks for their input, and hope you enjoyed the video and gained something from it. Have a great day. Thank you.